Starting now. Let me pull up my doc. 3, 2. Hi, welcome to the first episode of the GAFFER Angle. I know, new title. Film Factory was taken. I had another idea for one. It was taken. So here's the first episode. We'll call it the pilot episode. The topic today will be the films that, kind of made me want to get into film. But before I do, let's go for a fun film fact of the day. Morgan Freeman, who is on subject for today, was born June 11th, 1937, which is the same year Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was released in theater, which absolutely blew my mind when I looked it up. Love Morgan Freeman, and my favorite of Morgan Freeman is a movie that I think everyone should know, which is called Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption was directed by Frank Darabont, and the lead role was Tim Robbins as Andy. I forgot his last name. I forgot to say his last name. His last name was kind of weird to say. The movie follows a young man who is on trial for murdering his wife and her lover, which he says he's innocent, and the whole movie we go believing that he's innocent. Truly, we're convinced that he's innocent. And it also follows another guy named Red who was tried for murder and was confirmed. He did actually commit murder, and that character is played by none other than Morgan Freeman. Gotta love Morgan Freeman. This movie just blew my mind when I saw him. Let me get to the facts. Okay, so they filmed Shawshank Redemption with the Eastman Kodak 5292, which was also used in Return of the Jedi, War Games, and Tootsie. I've never seen Tootsie, but that's what that's what the website said. For some reason, Shawshank Redemption, I think it was because it was an odd title, is what I saw in interviews. It ended poorly in the box office, but became the number one film on IMDb's user in 1990 when it surpassed The Godfather. It is considered one of the greatest films in America and was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. This movie, now that we're done with the facts, this movie is just incredible. I mean, from a cinematography standpoint, there are so many shots that are so unique. I'm not going to give any spoilers because, for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, this is such a great movie to check out. I watch it at least once a year. Actually, once every 3 to 5 months, just because of how much I need to see it. It just has such great moments and great, plot points, and I don't even know how to explain it without spoiling it. I mean, it has so many undertones. The major, I guess, quote unquote, lesson or thing that it follows is that, in a situation like prison, you really need hope. And Andy, he provides that hope to not only the inmates, but the prison guards. You see him talking about taxes with the prison guards because they haven't been taught that. And sorry, I forgot to mention he's a banker, which is very convenient. Let me take a drink for him. My throat's dry. He's a banker, so he can help with taxes, beyond the scope that everyone understands. And through that, he gets into some trouble. Again, I'm not going to spoil it. But, he's such a sweet guy and such a nice guy that everyone's like, how the hell did he commit murder? At the beginning, what I love is there's a part where he says, I'm innocent. And you see Red, who, again, played by Morgan Freeman. He does a little chuckle, as well as everyone, the other inmates, and he's like, that's what everyone says around here, sonny. And I just, there's so many moments in the film that I wish I could talk about, but I can't spoil it. If you want me to spoil it at some point, I could do an episode of Shawshank Redemption and one other movie, just breaking them down, actually talking about them in detail. But for now, I don't want to spoil any films too early into this. I did, however, pick one scene that I think it's not really a spoiler to the primary plot. It's just I loved the acting that Morgan Freeman portrayed, especially because he wasn't the main character. Obviously, he was a side character, or a supporting role. Sorry, but yeah. So the scene is right. We see Red throughout the entire film. At the beginning, we see him going through a parole hearing, which he did. He got a parole hearing after 20 years of being in Shawshank Prison. And he, he talks to the guy. He's very sweet about it. He's like, oh yes, I do feel rehabilitated. I feel like I can go back into society and be normal. Like going back into normal society. Like I'm not a problem. I'm not a threat. And he gets denied. He gets rejected. And this is obviously important to the plot because he needs to be there for when Andy is there, and for Andy, the main character, for him to progress and for him to grow more character, for us to see more of Morgan Freeman. It would make sense for him to show up, and then so that's how we kind of introduce Red, or at least see a little bit of Red's color and what he is when he's like a quote unquote younger. I mean, he's 20 years after he's already been admitted into Shawshank Prison. But towards the end of the film, when we see Red much older now, it's been 40 years since he was put into prison, he walks into his parole hearing and he does not care at all. He does not give two words. He has this nonchalant look to him. He's older, his hair is gray. He sits in his chair like slouched back, which in the first scene he's holding his hat, he's like worried and whatnot. And he says this one line where, it's a younger man who's judging him, and he says, do you feel like you've been rehabilitated? And he's like, what does that mean? Like, what does rehabilitation mean? And then the guy goes like, well, it means, and he says the most, like, the famous lines, which is what I know anytime someone says Morgan Freeman, I think of these lines. He says, I know what you think it means, Sonny. And like those lines just, man, every time I hear it, I'm just like, Morgan freaking Freeman, man. The scene, he really does give talk, and like he shows his testimony of what it's been like in prison, and in a way, like he doesn't actually talk about his experiences in prison. He just talks about prison has become his home. He's grown used to Shawshank, and he says like he mocks them in a way. He says like, go ahead and put your little stamp, your stamp in the book or whatever, because I don't give a damn anymore. And again, I can't spoil it, but there is an event that happens before this that I think made him lose that kind of hope that he had, that was being poured into for almost all the film. So yeah, I mean, those two scenes really show. I think those are two scenes that are good examples of like character growth. We see him growing. He's a very like he's the guy who can get things for you, is what he says. But we can still see him. He's young. He seems more innocent, quote unquote, in the 20-year one. But in the 40-year one, like I said, he's seasoned. He's been through life. Of course, his life has been in prison, so he doesn't really know what the life is. Excuse me. Outside of that prison, he just he knows what he knows, basically. So yeah, that those two scenes, I always look back at them for character development and for like to see how to get a character from point A to point B without point A being the beginning and point B being the end. So yeah, I definitely suggest checking out Shawshank Redemption. It's an incredible film. Great acting. It won, like I said, it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. I mean, that just says the amount of quality that's put into that film. I don't know if I can't really say anything else besides it's a great movie. I mean, it's just an incredible film. The second film I want to talk about is a Steven Spielberg film, and we all know and love Steven Spielberg. If you don't know him, then I'm sorry, you've been living under a rock, because that man's done everything. Oh, let me take a drink. Stay hydrated. Okay. The movie is called Schindler's List. The lead role is played by Liam Neeson, who plays Oscar Schindler. And this is a movie that follows, like I said, Oscar Schindler. He was a man in Nazi Germany. He was a German man who I can't spoil it. I guess I can. I guess I can kind of talk about it more. He was kind of a nobody before everything was happening. And then one day he played his cards right when it came to the Nazi party, and he became a very big figure in the war and a big figure within the party and just in Germany in general. He went from being who's that guy? Oh, that's nobody. To actually, this is a scene in the first scene of the movie. He walks into a party and he buys drinks for the Nazi officers who are in the room. And, it's like, oh, who's that guy? It's whatever. And then later on, it's been a few hours, another Nazi officer comes in and he goes, who is that? And then the waiter goes, don't you know? That's Oscar Schindler. And, the waiter didn't know who the hell he was at the beginning of the night. I mean, he didn't know shit. Or he didn't know, crap, I'm sorry for cussing. He didn't know who he was. He was, like I said, he was nobody. He comes in, he has money, he doesn't have too much money. He spends his money right, he plays his cards right, he's respectful, he gives them a party, and boom, he's a big figure. That first scene absolutely hooked me to the movie. If you've seen it, that scene probably hooked you too. If it didn't, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, so Schindler's List, it takes place during Nazi Germany, during the Holocaust. Let's get to the facts. Okay. They filmed Schindler's List with the Arriflex 35, the Arriflex 535B, and the Arriflex 535 cameras. The 535 was the same camera from Twister and a few other movies that have had, to have a little bit of a wider range. It was a 35 millimeter camera, a beautiful piece. I want to research it more, because when I was researching for this first episode, I was looking at it and I was like, damn, this is an interesting camera. It had so many weird little quirks to it and whatnot that I want to get into it, in another episode hopefully. Schindler's List made $322 million in the box office. It's been considered the 8th best movie in America ever, and was reviewed by the Vatican as one of the most important movies in history. And unlike Shawshank Redemption, which was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, Schindler's List won 7 Academy Awards. I wanna, that's insane. That's incredible. Yeah, and when you watch the movie, you'll see why. I mean, again, cinematography was absolutely amazing. The acting was flawless. I can get into a little bit more because, the Holocaust is a rough subject, but it's a historical subject, so you're not really spoiling much if you talk about it. There are a lot of scenes that portray the things that happened to Jewish people in countries that weren't Israel. I mean, like, it shows what happened in Poland and the Polish Jews. It shows what happens to the German Jews, and the ways that they were treated and the ways that they were quote unquote like herded like cattle, I would say. I mean, they show, of course, they show like the shoe piles, they show the clothing piles, the luggage piles, but what I do like is that they showcase the trains. And if you know anything about the trains, they would, and sorry, this is a very rough topic to talk about. They would confine people who were Jewish into these carts until there was no room left, meaning that people were suffocating and they were dying standing up, and they couldn't sit down because their bodies would take up too much room. There are multiple scenes in the movie and in other sources of media where you'll see these trains have hands and arms sticking out of them, like begging and pleading for help. And Schindler's List portrays it in such a brutal way that, you know, it really makes you think, like, people went through this. People actually went through this. It's such a hard scene to... It's such a hard thing to witness. One scene out of all of it, though, let me pull up my notes. I had to close out somewhere. One of the hardest scenes to watch, though, it's called, if you look it up on YouTube, if you want to, spoil yourself, I mean, I don't know. It's not, again, it's not plot, I guess it is a little bit of the plot, it's not super plot, though. There's this scene called the ghetto liquidation scene, and the ghetto was what they called the area that they put the Jewish people in, and it's where the German officers were going around cleaning up the streets of, I believe it's Poland, where they were cleaning up the streets and pulling the Jewish people out of their houses in order to put them on the train to, relocate them. In this scene, we see Oskar Schindler. He's on a hill. He's on a horse with another woman. I'm pretty sure it's his wife. I'm 80% sure that it's his wife. And sorry. We see this girl in a red dress walking around, and the music in the scene is such it sounds sweet, but when you look at it, like when you're seeing the visuals and you're hearing the music, you're horrified. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. The little girl walks by. I'm only gonna spoil this because it's a very rough top. It's a rough part of the movie, but it really tells what what to expect when you watch Schindler's List. The little girl walks by a wall of Jewish people or Jewish men lined up, and she walks by. She doesn't even flinch, and the Jewish men are shot and killed right beside her. She continues walking down the street. That scene is just kind of, I guess, like a sample of what to expect when watching Schindler's List, as well as any other movie that has to deal with the Holocaust. I mean, I've seen a lot of work that has to do with the Holocaust. I've seen, now I'm drawing a blank. There's The Boy in Striped Pajamas. It's not really about the Holocaust, it's more about just German camps in general. It's called Stalag 17, it's an old movie, definitely worth watching. And then a few other movies. I'm really drawing a blank here now about the movies. But yeah, I've seen a lot of movies about the Holocaust, and I've never seen one that was so impactful and so heartbreaking than Schindler's List. Schindler's List taught me a lot of visual storytelling, because there are moments where it's just music, and you will see piles of jewelry, piles of clothing, piles of very nice kitchenware, or just anything you'd find like furniture and other appliances piled up, because that's what they were doing. They were taking items and they were taking things from the Jewish people. And you even see that there are Jews who are working those stations trying to go through the pile and see what's good. At some point, again, this is another spoiler, but it's not really that big of a spoiler. You see a Nazi soldier pour teeth onto a table where there's a Jewish man with I don't know what it's called, the little scope that looks at jewelry to see its authenticity. Anyways, he pours the teeth. and he's picking up the teeth. Or no, he doesn't even pick up the teeth. He just looks at them, and then he looks at the officer, or the soldier, and you know what the teeth are. I mean, people used to put, jewelry on their teeth. People still do put jewelry on their teeth. There are gold teeth, there are crowns there. I mean, they were taking everything. Everything. It didn't matter if they were mutilating their body. They took everything. And Schindler's List shows it perfectly. I don't want to get into the acting because I can't even explain the acting in Schindler's List. There's, as much as, Liam Neeson is an incredible actor, I will always love and appreciate Liam Neeson in this movie. He's not the only one that shows his acting capability. He's definitely not the only one. And I'm not going to spoil who plays the quote-unquote main villain, because if you know who he is, then you're going to be super surprised. If you don't know who he is, you're going to be confused. And then when you look him up, you'll be surprised. So I'm just not going to spoil it at all. But yeah. Schindler's List, definitely a great movie to check out. I'd say watch it once and then don't watch it for maybe like 8 months. 8 months to a year, because it's definitely going to leave a different perspective and a different, weight on your shoulder of like the Holocaust. And again, if you're a film student, you're gonna love it. If you're a film lover, you're gonna love it. Even if you're someone who's a casual watcher or a viewer, you'll love it. So yeah, Schindler's List. The third movie, and the last movie, because I am running out of space, is a movie that everyone should know, but a lot of people don't know, and I've been very disappointed to learn that people don't know this movie. It's called Interstellar. The director is Christopher Nolan, and Christopher Nolan has done other movies like Batman Begins, Batman the Dark Knight, Batman Dark Knight Rises. He did one that everyone should know, called Oppenheimer, with the lead role being Cillian Murphy. But before that, he made this movie. Matthew McConaughey plays Joseph Cooper, who is an ex-pilot in a futuristic Earth where they're having an issue with dirt and dust. It seems like, the Dust Bowl that happened in the 20s is now happening again, but on a much more intense level, to the point where the Earth is starving, and people are starving. They're starving themselves. I mean, you're having a farming crisis. Yeah. It's a great movie. It starts off simple, and it goes from being that to the main plot, which is Joseph Cooper and a team of astronomers. I'm trying to think about how to say it without spoiling it. A team of astronauts have to go and save the Earth by bending physics and marking uncharted territory across the universe. That means going to a whole new galaxy and a whole different adventure. I mean, this movie is great. Every time I talk about Interstellar, I always start nerding out because of how incredible it is. Okay, let me get to the facts. So, the cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema and Christopher Nolan redesigned the main camera that they use, which was the IMAX camera. Everyone loves IMAX. They redesigned it to be a shoulder-mounted camera. Keep in mind, the IMAX camera isn't like a regular, GoPro or even a Nikon or a Canon. It's a huge camera, and it's a heavy one at that. And Nolan and Hoyt van Hoytema realized that it was way too restricted for the things that they wanted, so they said screw it, and they turned it into a shoulder-mounted camera. And even Christopher Nolan says, he says, we used it as a GoPro. he said we used it like a GoPro, and that's if you watch it, you'll understand why. Nolan has this thing, and I'm a big fan. Nolan's my favorite director. I'm gonna be so honest. Nolan's my favorite director. He's always been my favorite director. I watched Interstellar when I was 7, and then I watched it again when I was 10, and then when I was 12, and I still watch it to this day. I love it. I'll watch it maybe 2 or 3 times every 2 months. I'm addicted to it. Yeah. So Nolan has this thing where he only films in film reel, and it's because it's the most real thing to what our eyes see and what our eyes can understand. It's also the highest quality of film that you can get, or like the highest quality of resolution you can get for filming a film or anything in general. And so because of that, he does like to use the best quality reel. This movie is very unique because it handles the concept of a black hole, and I wouldn't say it's a spoiler. Nolan gathered a team of physicists, real-life physicists, to develop a depiction of a black hole 5 years, keep in mind, 5 years before there was even proof or even photographic imagery sent back by a probe in space that a black hole exists. 5 years before we ever heard that a black hole was real, he created an accurate depiction of a black hole, completely using physics. He didn't use any AI. He didn't use any, I mean, he did have to use CGI. Unfortunately, he doesn't like using CGI, but he used physics and science to figure it out, not just, oh, it look cool like this. Y'all need to watch this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you need to watch it. It's an incredible movie. I mean, there's so many scenes that are great. First off, it does something that a lot of movies don't. There's no sound in space. Star Wars makes that mistake. Star Trek makes that mistake. Stargate makes that mistake. Almost every single space movie I've seen makes that mistake. Even Alien, the classic, great movie, there's so much sound in space. Nolan does not do that. Nolan absolutely did not care for there to be like any sound in space. It was completely silent if you saw a scene outside in space. And I'm not saying that every single film or space movie does this, but Nolan really captured that vacuum that exists out there. Again, this is a great movie. It's a long movie. Yeah, I'd say it's a long movie. I mean, all three movies I just talked about are long. But I do want to talk about one scene from Interstellar that always gets to me. Not in an emotional way, but in a like, holy crap, this is an incredible way. It really changed my perspective when it came to excuse me, when it came to the use of music, which Nolan does a great job with his composer. Oh, which, by the way, the composer was Hans Zimmer. And if you, again, aren't living under a rock, Hans Zimmer made the music for Dune 1 and 2, one of the craziest grossing films recently. So, yeah, the music's going to be good. Okay, let me talk about the scene. So there's a place called Miller's Planet in the movie. I'm not gonna spoil whatever. Miller's Planet is a planet that's completely filled with the ocean, and it is orbiting a black hole. And because of that, its waves are like the size of mountains, right? Very, very terrifying thing to see. I'm so sorry. Ugh. I'm alive, guys, don't worry. Anyways, it's this crazy scene where you see these giant waves coming at them. It's a really tense moment. But what really got me was that there is a clicking sound when you see the scene. There's a clicking sound. It happens every, I think, 1.25 seconds. Jeez, I need water. Okay. And this clicking sound grows on the theme more, but it never stops. It's always a. No, I mean I changed the tune a little bit, but anyways, it's always the ticking sound, tick, 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 tick. And this is because of, again, I'm not gonna spoil it, but there is a time crunch. And that time crunch is portrayed through the music, which is something that, again, Nolan does, period. He just does it in general. It's a very unique thing. that I haven't really seen any other director do. That Nolan really does focus on time a lot in his movies, and Interstellar is no exception. I mean, he has multiple themes for the movie, and every theme has something to do with time. I've seen his interviews. He says that, oh, this scene portrays time with this type of piece, or there's an instrument in this scene that makes time more compelling and more, straightforward, or like on a crunch. And so in this scene, the time I think this scene is probably the most tense scene of the whole movie, because of we know the threat, we hear how much time we have, but we have no idea how or why this exists. I mean, yes, it is explained, it's a black hole, whatever. But imagine seeing a wave like that on Earth as a regular thing. Not like it's new or special. Imagine seeing a wave the size of Everest as a daily forecast, or as a daily notification. Hey, by the way, the Titan wave is coming today. Don't worry, it comes every few hours. I don't know about you, I'd be horrified. And this scene, is one of the most intense scenes I've seen, because of the music, because of the threat, and because of the what's the word? Like, inconceivable nature of it. Inconceivable. Sorry, that's a Princess Bride reference. Anyways, that's Interstellar. I can't spoil it. One day, if we make an episode off of it, I will talk about this movie for 2.5 hours, which is basically the whole runtime. I'll even break down the whole movie scene by scene if I take off enough and do that. I mean, I love this movie to death. But yeah, okay. I gotta wrap it up. So let me go over the 3 movies real quick, and let me explain why I chose these 3 movies. Shawshank Redemption is it's a very slow burn, I will say. It is a slow burn movie. I think people who like action shouldn't watch Shawshank Redemption because they will get bored. But it's still a great movie. It has great writing, great acting. And what I took was the writing. I did take a lot of notes and tips from the writing in Shawshank Redemption, and I do think that Shawshank Redemption is one of the best written books. And yes, it is a book. It's written by Stephen King. A little thing there. It's one of the best written books that I've read, that I've seen into a movie. I still want to read the book, but I've seen as a movie. I need to watch. I guess I can't really say that I've seen it as a movie if I haven't read the book. You know what I mean? It's a great story, and it's depicted really well, or it's depicted incredibly, with incredible actors and undertones that I could go on about, but I can't. So yeah, Shawshank Redemption gave me a lot of story lessons, and it showed me, like, moving forward after watching that, when I looked at a movie, I could tell what was going to be a good story and what wasn't, because of Shawshank Redemption, because of the slow burn, and because of how every single line in Shawshank Redemption has weight to it. There's nothing that a character says that doesn't need to exist. Every single line that a character says is important, or has some type of impact, even if it is a joke. That joke is to show the type of humor that they need in the situation that they're in. It shows the desire to have entertainment or to have joy in such a painful and harsh environment. Schindler's List, there's so much to break apart in Schindler's List through dialogue, but there's even more to talk about through what is not spoken, and that is the visual storytelling. There are so many scenes and shots in Schindler's List, where it's only music, and the music is only to set the mood, but what you really get the emotion from is what you're looking at, what you're witnessing. You are a witness to an awful crime of humanity, against humanity, an awful thing that happened. And Schindler's List, I would say, does it justice. Again, it's a great movie. Steven Spielberg, I was completely blown away when I saw that it was Steven Spielberg. I mean, I knew that Steven Spielberg does great films. I mean, I think he did... Shoot. Y'all are gonna kill me for this if I get it wrong. I think he did The Goonies. And I love The Goonies. Goonies is a great movie. It's one of my childhood movies. But I mean, I knew that he did great films. But when I watched Schindler's List, I was blown away. He placed on my top 5 director list as soon as I watched that movie. Schindler's List taught me visual storytelling. It's so powerful, and it really does show how, as filmmakers, as we move forward, how we can use the camera as more than just to show what is happening, but also to show what everyone is feeling, to show what the characters are feeling, to put ourselves in like that situation and think, what would you do? Really, what would you do? It makes you think. It makes you question everything that you think that you know. You know, you go to school, you have a 9 to 5, maybe you have a part-time job. What would happen if that was all taken away and everything that you owned was given to people who hated you? What would you do? So yeah, Schindler's List is a great movie. I almost said book. It is a book, actually, now that I think about it. I definitely suggest checking it out again. If you're gonna watch it, don't watch it again for like 8 to 10 months. Or maybe you should after a week and like show a family member or something so that they can be traumatized with you. Yeah. Interstellar. Again, one of my favorite movies of all time. It taught me the tension, and it taught me how to use tension in music, and what a great climax looks like, even whenever the climax isn't the ultimate climax, when the climax is just the scene, the scene's climax. Interstellar's true climax is so much greater, and I envy every single person who is going to watch it for the first time. And I hope that it's a great experience for you. I hope you love it as much as I do, if not more. If you do, let's nerd out and talk about it, because I could talk about it for days. Shawshank Redemption taught me how to write a compelling story. It showed me what to look for in future films and what to look for in books that I read, and what a great story looks like when it's written. Schindler's List, visual storytelling, undertones, showing that the camera is so much more than just a piece of equipment. And Interstellar taught me how music can truly affect everything. It can affect the movement of your story. It can affect the emotion of your characters. It can affect how we go out of the movie theater and say, what did we just watch? And so yeah, these 3 movies are I would say on my my top 100. I'm not gonna say where because that's a secret. I hope y'all liked this episode. I'm very tired. My throat hurts super bad. Y'all been hearing me cough. I need to drink at least half a gallon of water now. A great first episode, I think. Again, the podcast is going to be called The Gaffer Angle from now on. If you know what a gaffer is, you're going to laugh with me, hopefully. If you don't know what a gaffer is, look it up. It's a film. See? I got to drink water. It's a film thing. If you know what a gaffer is, I would suggest looking it up. So yeah. Hope y'all have a great day or a great night or whatever you're doing. I hope you found some type of entertainment from this, and please put down what movies made you get into film, in the comments. Don't forget to follow if you haven't already. Starting the journey young. I will hopefully have another episode out tomorrow if I get this one edited done. I think I should edit this pretty quickly and have it done soon. So yeah, hope y'all enjoyed this episode. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. Sorry, I'm trying to think of time now. See? No long. Yeah. Alright, have a good day. Have a good night. And I'm gonna sign off. Good chat.